Here is a number that should not make sense, and yet it does. You could climb into the fastest machine humanity has ever built, point it at the darkest patch of sky, and travel in a straight line forever, and you would still never reach the edge of what you can see. Not because the edge is far, because the edge is running away from you faster than you can chase it. Sit with that for a moment. You have been told, probably your whole life, that the universe is big, unimaginably big. And that is true. But bigness is not the thing that traps you. A big room is still a room. You can walk to the far wall if you are patient. What if I told you the universe is not a big room? What if I told you it is a room where the far wall is moving away from your outstretched hand faster than light, so that no matter how long you walk, the wall gets further, not closer? That is not science fiction. That is the plainest reading of what we actually observe when we look up. And most people have never been told it because it sounds insane, and because the people who understand it best are usually too busy to stop and say it out loud in ordinary words. They know it in equations. They rarely say it at the kitchen table. So the gap sits there between what is quietly true and what most people carry around in their heads, and almost nobody bridges it. So let me try. Not as an expert, I am not one. I am just someone who found this idea and could not put it down. Let me lay out every step slowly from your armchair, and you tell me where the logic breaks. Because I could not find the break. And I looked hard for weeks, if I am honest, turning it over like a stone. I kept expecting to crack open and show me the trick inside. It never cracked. It just got clearer. And the clearer it got, the more astonishing it became that this is not something everybody talks about at dinner. Before we can talk about a wall, we have to talk about how you know anything at all about a place you have never been. Think about how you learn about the world. You touch it, you listen to it, you watch it. Every single thing you have ever known about anything beyond your own skin arrived carried on something, a sound wave, a smell, a beam of light. Information does not teleport into your head. It travels, and traveling takes time. There is no exception to this anywhere, at any scale, ever. The warmth of a fire reaches you as light and as moving air. The voice of a friend reaches you as a pressure wave rippling through the room. Nothing you know arrived without a courier, and every courier has to make a journey, and every journey takes a while. Let me push on that, because it is the whole foundation, and I do not want it to feel like a throwaway. Close your eyes and picture the last thing you learned about the wider world. A voice on the radio, a face on a screen, a bird calling from a tree you could not see. In every single case, something physical crossed the gap between the thing and you. There is no such thing as knowledge that arrives by magic, unaccompanied, with no journey behind it. And once you accept that, you have accepted the seed of everything else. Because a journey has a length, and a length divided by a speed gives you a time. That little bit of arithmetic, length over speed equals time, is the engine of this entire evening. Keep it in your pocket. Now, here is the part people skip. Light is fast, but it is not instant. Light has a speed, a finite, fixed, stubborn speed. About 300,000 kilometers every second. That sounds like plenty. It would circle the Earth 7.5 times before you finish this sentence. But scale it up to the cosmos, and it becomes almost laughably slow. Let me give you a feel for how strange that speed is, because we will lean on it for the rest of this. 300,000 kilometers a second is so fast that inside a single room, it might as well be infinite. Flip a light switch, and the far wall seems to brighten the instant your finger moves. It does not, of course, the light took a few billionths of a second to cross the room. But your senses have no hope of catching a delay that small. So for all your life, light has felt instant, and that feeling is a lie your scale told you. Grow the distances, and the lie falls apart. Consider the Sunday. When you look at it carefully, never directly, you are not seeing it as it is now. You are seeing it as it was about 8 minutes ago. The light left its surface, crossed 150 million kilometers of empty space, and only now reached your eye. If the sun blinked out this instant, you would enjoy 8 more minutes of sunshine, blissfully unaware, before the darkness caught up. 8 minutes of a lie. 8 minutes of light from a star that, in this thought experiment, no longer exists. And you can do the sum yourself right now in your chair, 150 million kilometers. Light covers 300,000 every second. Divide one by the other, and you land near 500 seconds, just over 8 minutes. There is no authority in that number. There is only division. You are not trusting me. You are watching the arithmetic do exactly what it must. That is the spirit of everything ahead. Every number I hand you, I will show you where it comes from first, so that you never have to take my word, only check my sums. So already we have our first uncomfortable truth. You never see the present. You cannot. You only ever see the past, delivered late by light that took its time getting here. Even the face across the table from you, you see as it was a few billionths of a second ago. The delay is tiny there. But the principle is exactly the same as the one that will build our wall. There is no now that you can see. There is only then arriving late. Now stretch it. The nearest star beyond the sun is a little over 4 light years away. A light year is not a measure of time, even though it sounds like one. It is a measure of distance. It is how far light travels in 1 year. An enormous distance. Write it out, and it is roughly 9.5 trillion kilometers. One of those, and that nearest star is 4 of those away. So its light is 4 years old when it reaches you. You are looking 4 years into the past. Let me sit on that word, light year, for one more breath, because it is the ruler we will use to measure the whole cosmos. Take the distance light covers in a second, which we already have. Multiply it by the seconds in a minute, the minutes in an hour, the hours in a day, the days in a year. You get that 9.5 trillion kilometers. It is not a mysterious quantity handed down from on high. It is a second's worth of light wound out across a whole year. And once you have that ruler, every distance in the sky becomes a distance in time as well, automatically, because the same light that crossed the gap also spent the years crossing it. Distance and time stop being two things. Out here, they are one thing wearing two names. The bright stars in your winter sky, some of that light is hundreds of years old. A few are older. Take the Belt of the Hunter, 3 bright stars in a neat row that people have watched for as long as there have been people. The light from those stars left them centuries ago, some of it well over 1,000 years ago. When you look at certain stars, you are seeing light that left before your grandparents were born. Some of those stars may not even exist anymore. They could have died centuries ago, and you would have no way to know, because the news of their death is still crawling toward you across the dark. You could be looking at a graveyard and calling it a sky, and you would not be able to tell the difference, and neither could anyone. This is the tool, this is the only tool we have. Look outward, and you look backward. Distance and time are the same currency out here. The further away a thing is, the older the picture. And that single fact that you cannot separate how far from how long ago is the key that unlocks everything else I want to show you. Hold on to it, because we are going to use it again and again. And every time we use it, it will pay out a little more. Because if looking far means looking back, then there is a furthest back. There has to be, and if there is a furthest back, then there is a furthest away that we could ever, even in principle, receive a signal from. A boundary made not of brick, not of force, but of time itself. Follow that thread, and it leads straight to the edge. Not the edge of the universe, the edge of what can ever reach you. We call the whole method a way of seeing, but really it is a way of remembering the universe as it once was, in fragments, delivered on a delay. A telescope is a time machine that only points one direction, backward. The bigger the telescope, the deeper into the past it looks. There is no lens anywhere that can show you a distant thing as it is now, because now, out there, has not had time to reach you yet. When our finest space telescopes catch the faint glow of a galaxy near the limit of sight, they are not photographing a place. They are photographing a moment, one that ended before the Earth had formed, before the sun had lit. The image is a fossil, made of light, instead of stone. There is one more piece before we can build the wall, and it is the strangest of all. So let me set it out on its own, because everything hinges on it. Space is not sitting still. You would assume, reasonably, that the distant galaxies are just sitting out there, fixed like lamps hung in a great dark hall. That the space between them is a stage, empty and unchanging, and the galaxies are actors standing on it. That is the natural picture. It is also wrong, deeply, gorgeously wrong, in a way that took the sharpest minds of the last century by surprise. The stage is stretching. Here is how anyone figured that out, and you can follow every step. When light comes from a distant galaxy, it carries a signature, certain colors, certain precise notes in the light that we understand well because we can make the same notes in a laboratory here on Earth. Hydrogen glows a particular way, always. It is a fingerprint. Heat a bit of hydrogen gas, and it emits light at exact specific wavelengths, the same ones every time, as reliable as a struck tuning fork sounds the same note. That reliability is the whole trick, because it means when we look at a distant galaxy, we already know what the light left as. We know the note that was sung. Let me make sure that lands, because it is the clever hinge of the whole measurement. If you did not know what note the light left as, a shift in that note would tell you nothing. Maybe it was always that color. But hydrogen is not free to choose. It sings the same notes on Earth, in a lamp, in the sun, in a galaxy, a billion light years off. The physics that sets those notes is the same everywhere as far as we can test, and we test it constantly. So the note is a known quantity, sung at a known pitch, before it ever set out. That is what makes the shift readable. You are comparing the arriving light against a standard you already hold in your hand. And when we look at distant galaxies, that fingerprint is there, but it is shifted, stretched toward the red end of the spectrum. We call that redshift. The light has been stretched to a longer, redder wavelength. The tuning fork was struck at one note, and it arrives at a lower one. Something happened to it on the way. Why would light stretch on its way to us? One clean answer. Because the space it was traveling through stretched while it was in flight. The wave got pulled longer, like a drawing on a rubber sheet. When you pull the sheet apart, draw a little wave on a rubber band, then stretch the band, the wave gets longer, the peaks spread apart. That is redshift. Not the galaxy moving through space in a way, at least not mainly, the space itself between there and here growing while the light crossed it. And here is the pattern that seals it. The further away the galaxy, the more its light is stretched. Twice as far, roughly twice the stretch. That is not what you would get if galaxies were just flying through static space like debris from an explosion. That is what you get if space itself is expanding everywhere all at once. So that the more space sits between you and something, the faster that something recedes. The relationship is clean and steady across the sky, and it points at only one honest explanation. The container grows. Think for a moment about how you would tell those two stories apart, because this is the part that convinces me most. If galaxies were just debris hurled outward from some central blast, you would expect a mess. Some flung fast, some flung slow. No tidy rule linking speed to distance, and a definite empty center the debris flew out from. That is not what the sky shows. The sky shows a clean rule, the same rule in every direction. Speed rising steadily with distance, and no center anywhere. Debris does not do that. Rising dough does exactly that. When one story predicts a mess, and the other predicts precisely the tidy pattern you see, you have your answer. And it did not come from authority. It came from asking what each picture would have to look like, then checking which the sky matches. Let me make it plain with a picture. Imagine a loaf of raisin bread rising in the oven. You are a raisin. Every other raisin drifts away from you as the dough swells. The nearby raisins drift slowly. The far raisins drift fast because there is more expanding dough between you and them. No raisin is special. Every raisin sees the same thing. Every raisin thinks it is the center. None of them is. If you were a raisin with a telescope, you would measure exactly what we measure. Nearby raisins gently receding. Distant raisins fleeing at tremendous speed. And you would be tempted, wrongly, to conclude that you sat at the middle of the loaf when in truth there is no middle, only dough that grows between every pair of raisins at once. That is the Copernican principle in action, the humble idea that you are not standing in a special spot. Every observer in every galaxy sees everyone else rushing away. There is no center. There is no edge you can fly to and peek over. The expansion is happening between things, not around them. This matters enormously. So let me say it a different way. The universe is not expanding into anything. There is no outside it is spilling into. It is simply that every distance inside it grows. The question, where is the center of the expansion, has the same answer as the question, where is the center of the surface of a balloon? Nowhere, everywhere. The question is built wrong. Now hold both facts in your hands at once. Light takes time to arrive, and space stretches while the light is in flight. Put those two together and you get something that ambushes the mind. If space between you and a far galaxy is expanding, and if it is expanding fast enough, then the light that galaxy sends toward you is swimming upstream against a current. And if the current is faster than the swimmer never arrives. The light is emitted in your direction, aimed straight at you, and it still loses ground forever. That is the wall, not a barrier of stone, a barrier of expanding distance. And I have not even told you the worst of it yet. Let me give you the first full picture of the wall, built from nothing but the two ideas we just established. There is a distance beyond which nothing can ever reach you. Take a galaxy very far away, so far that the space between you and it is expanding faster than light can cross it. Remember, the further the thing, the faster the space between recedes. Pile up enough space, and the recession speed climbs past 300,000 kilometers a second. Nothing about that breaks the law that says nothing travels faster than light, because the galaxy is not moving through space at that speed. Space itself is expanding, and expansion has no speed limit. The rule that caps everything at light speed governs motion through space, not the stretching of space itself. That distinction is the hinge of the whole argument. So let me nail it down. A galaxy sitting perfectly still in its own patch of space, not traveling anywhere, can still be receding from you faster than light, purely because the enormous stack of space between you and it is all growing at once. Add up trillions upon trillions of kilometers, each growing a little, and the total growth can outpace any messenger. No law is broken. The galaxy is a well-behaved local citizen of its own neighborhood. The distance between your neighborhoods is the outlaw. Let me make that stacking concrete, because it is the part that feels like a cheat until you see it clearly. Imagine the space between here and a far galaxy divided into 1 billion equal steps, like fence posts along a road. Each little step between two fence posts stretches only a whisker per second. Nothing in any one step is breaking any rule. But you have 1 billion of them, and every one adds its whisker, and the whiskers all pile up into the total. The far galaxy is not sprinting, it is standing still on its own patch. It is the sum of 1 billion tiny lawful stretches between it and you that carries it away faster than light could ever run back. No single stretch is illegal. The crime is only in the total, and the total answers to no speed limit because no thing is moving. The gap is simply growing. So picture a photon, a single particle of light, leaving that distant galaxy aimed perfectly at your eye. It travels towards you at light speed, the fastest anything can go, and yet the space it must cross is being added faster than it can eat through. Every second it makes progress, every second more distance is inserted ahead of it than it managed to cover. It is a swimmer in a river flowing backward faster than she can stroke. She swims her heart out. The far bank never comes closer. It recedes. And this photon is not lazy. It is doing the maximum that reality permits. There is no faster it could go. It is already maxed out, and it still loses. That light will never arrive. Not late. Never. There is no year, no century, no eon in which it lands. The galaxy that sent it is, for you, permanently sealed off. You could point the greatest telescope ever conceived at exactly that spot, and wait until the end of time and see nothing new from it. Because nothing new can complete the journey. Not a fainter image, not a delayed image, nothing. The channel is closed, not dimmed, closed. This gives every observer, you included, a boundary, a sphere centered on you, beyond which lies a region you can never receive a message from. Not because the message is not sent, because the message can never finish crossing. We call this an event horizon, borrowing the phrase we normally use for the edge of a black hole, the surface past which nothing gets back out. And it is the right phrase, because functionally it is the same thing, a one-way membrane in reality. On this side, you can know. On that side, forever hidden. The black hole's horizon traps what falls in. The cosmic horizon traps what lies beyond. Both are surfaces across which information runs only one way or not at all. Here's what unsettles me most. This horizon is not out at some absurd extreme. It is a specific, calculable distance. And galaxies are crossing it right now. Galaxies whose light we currently receive are, this very moment, drifting toward the point where the expansion between us tips past light speed. When they cross, their light stops arriving. Not the old light, which is already in transit, will keep trickling in, stretched redder and redder, fainter and fainter. But nothing new. From the moment they cross, everything they do afterward is lost to us forever. They fall over the edge of the knowable. A star that ignites in such a galaxy after the crossing will never send us a single photon. Whole histories unfold out there that no telescope in our future could ever record. They are not far. They are gone, and you cannot chase them. This is the reductio, the point where the escape plan collapses. Suppose you say, fine, I will build a ship and go after them. Let us be absurd about it. Let us give you a ship that flies at very nearly the speed of light, faster than anything real could ever go. Forget the fuel. Forget the arithmetic of interstellar travel times that would already stretch to thousands of years for even the nearest stars. Forget the escape velocity you would need just to leave your own galaxy's grip. Grant yourself the impossible ship. You point it at a galaxy that is about to cross your horizon, and you give chase with everything you have. You still lose because the space between you and it expands faster than you can close the gap. At light speed, the very best you are allowed. Every second you gain a little ground. Every second the expansion adds more ground than you gained. The gap grows. You are the swimmer again, now in the fastest boat physics permits, and the river still wins. You will chase that galaxy for eternity, and it will only ever get further away. There is no cleverness that fixes this. No slingshot, no shortcut, no better engine. The problem is not your speed. You are already at the maximum. The problem is that the finish line runs away faster than the maximum. Let me draw out just how hopeless the chase is, so it does not feel like I am waving it away. Suppose you shave your target down to something modest, not the far edge, just the nearest galaxy already receding faster than light. You launch. In your first year at nearly light speed, you cover most of a light year of distance. Good. But in that same year, the space ahead of you grew by more than a light year because you aimed at a target already crossing the threshold. So you ended the year further from it than you started, despite traveling nearly as fast as anything can. Run it again. Same result. Run it 1,000 times. Same result, only worse, because the expansion is quickening. There is no year in that infinite sequence where the numbers ever tip your way. You are not slowly gaining. You are steadily losing forever at the top speed the universe allows. That is not a hard journey. That is a journey with no arrival written anywhere in it. So the escape is not hard. It is not a matter of better engines. It is impossible in the way that reaching yesterday is impossible. The universe has a horizon built into its geometry, and you are inside it. And you cannot get out, and neither can anything you send. The wall does not care how fast you are. The wall is made of the very thing you would have to cross to reach it. Every meter you would cover is a meter that grows longer as you cover it. Sit with that. The stars are not just far. Some of them are leaving, and there is no version of the future in which you catch them. Now, let me take that same shape and point it at a completely different territory, because the wall has a second face, And this one is stranger because it is not about the far edge of space. It is about the far edge of time. The beginning, there is a moment before which no picture exists, and it is not because nothing happened. It is because the universe was not yet see-through. Follow the logic backward. We said the further you look, the older the light. So run that all the way down. Keep looking further and further at older and older light. And you are traveling back through the history of the universe like reading a book from the last page toward the first. Galaxies get younger. They get rawer, more chaotic, still forming. And this is exactly what we see when we point our most powerful eyes, our space telescopes, at the faintest, most distant smudges. We are catching galaxies as they were when the universe was young. Some of them look far more grown up, far sooner than anyone expected, which is its own delicious puzzle. Big and bright and orderly at an age when the models said they should still be shapeless infants, but leave that for now. The point is the direction of travel. Look far, see young, keep going. But you cannot keep going forever, because if you rewind far enough, you reach a time when the universe was so hot and so dense that it was not transparent at all. It was an opaque fog, a glowing plasma, so packed with free particles that light could not travel in a straight line. A photon would move a tiny distance and slam into a particle, scatter, move again, scatter again. Light was trapped, bouncing, unable to make progress. The whole cosmos was like the inside of the sundae, blindingly bright and utterly opaque. You could not see through it because nothing could see through it. There were no straight lines for light to travel along. Every path was a pinball run of collisions, and no image, no signal, no picture could survive it intact. Why was it opaque? Ask what light needs in order to travel freely. It needs to not keep bumping into things. In that early furnace, the particles were not yet bound into neat atoms. Electrons roamed loose, and loose electrons are exactly what light collides with most eagerly. So a photon could not get anywhere. It was born, it flew a hair's breadth, it struck a loose electron, it bounced off in some random direction, and the whole cosmos was a blinding, scattering pinball machine with no exit. That is what opaque means at the deepest level. Not dark, the opposite. So bright and so crowded that light could never fly straight long enough to carry a picture of anything. So there is a curtain, a moment, early on, when the universe finally cooled enough that the fog cleared. The particles settled into atoms, the fog lifted, and light was suddenly free to fly in straight lines across the cosmos. Think of it like a morning mist burning off. One moment the air is thick and you can see a few steps ahead. Then the temperature tips past a threshold, and all at once the mist is gone, and you can see for miles. The universe did that once, everywhere, at roughly the same time. It went from opaque to clear, and that transition is a physical event with a physical location in our past. The same distance in every direction we look. And here is the beautiful part. That very light, the light that was set free the instant the fog cleared, is still traveling. It has been traveling ever since. And it is arriving at your location right now, this second, from every direction in the sky. It never stopped. It has been in flight for nearly the whole age of the universe. And its journey ends, some of it, in you. We call it the cosmic microwave background. The oldest light there is, the flash of the moment the universe became transparent, stretched by all the expansion since into a faint whisper of microwaves that soaks the whole sky. It is genuinely detectable. Part of the static on an old untuned television was this. A small fraction of that snow on a dead channel was the oldest light in existence, brushing against your living room, older than every star, every planet, every atom that makes up your body. You have been sitting inside the afterglow of the early universe your whole life. Think about what that afterglow has been through. It's set out as fierce, hot light, the glow of a furnace filling all of space. And for nearly 14 billion years, the container it was crossing has been stretching, and stretching that light along with it, winding its waves out longer and longer, cooling its color from a searing glare down through red, down past what any eye can see, all the way down into the low murmur of microwaves. The redshift here is not modest. It is the most extreme stretch of any light we catch, precisely because that light has been traveling the longest and riding the most expansion. It is the same redshift we met in the galaxies, only turned up to its absolute limit. The oldest light is the most stretched light. It had to be. It crossed the most growing space, and it is a wall, a different wall, but a wall, because you cannot see past it. Look outward, look backward in time, and you can go and go and go until you hit the cosmic microwave background, and then you stop, not because there is nothing further back. There is. There is a whole earlier universe behind that curtain, hundreds of thousands of years of it, hot and busy and real. But it is opaque. No light comes from before that moment, because before that moment, light could not travel. The fog blocks the view. We call this the surface of last scattering, the wall of fog beyond which our oldest light cannot reach, and neither can our sight. Do you feel the same shape as before? The first wall was a limit in space, a distance past which nothing arrives. This wall is a limit in time, a moment before which nothing is visible. Both are horizons. Both are places where knowledge simply stops, not because we are not clever enough, but because the universe itself will not let the information through. In one case, the information is emitted but never finishes crossing. In the other case, the information could never be emitted as an image in the first place because the medium scrambled it. Different mechanisms, same result, a hard edge on the knowable, and notice what kind of wall this is. It is not a wall you could push through with a better telescope. Build a telescope 1,000 times more powerful, 1,000,000 times, and you still hit the fog. The fog is not blurry because our instruments are weak. It is blurry because it was physically an opaque cloud. There is no lens that sees through fog that existed 14 billion years ago and has been gone for almost as long. The curtain came down before there were eyes to see, and its record is the outer limit of the visible everything. Improve the eye all you like. The curtain is not a limit of the eye, it is a limit of the light. Now, there is a subtle rescue people sometimes reach for, and it is worth a word, because being precise about the edge is the whole game. It might be possible one day to peer a little behind the curtain by other messengers, not light at all, but ripples in space-time itself, or ghostly particles that barely interact with anything, and so could have streamed freely even through the fog. Perhaps that is a real hope and an honest one. Think about why those couriers could slip through where light could not. Light was trapped because it collided with everything. A courier that barely touches ordinary matter would have sailed straight through the furnace untouched, carrying a faint memory of an even earlier moment. So there may be a thinner curtain further back for a different kind of messenger. But notice it does not remove the wall. It only says a different courier might carry a different message from behind it. For light, for the ordinary seeing we have relied on for all of history, the wall is absolute. And even those other messengers run into the same deeper limit we are building toward. Finite speed, stretching container, the walls compound, they do not cancel. So the deepest past has a wall built before there was anything to build it against. A wall made of the early universe's own opacity. Escaping outward in space, you hit the horizon of expansion. Peering backward in time, you hit the horizon of the fog. Two different escapes, two different walls. And you cannot get past either one, but there's something almost nobody sees here. And it is the third face of the wall. And I think it is the most humbling of all. The wall is not just around you. In a sense, the wall is also inside the very rules of what can be known. Let me build this one carefully because it is subtle. We have talked about distance and we have talked about the beginning. Now think about the total tally. How much universe can you, in principle, ever gather information about? Add up everything whose light has had time to reach you since the beginning. That collection has a name, the observable universe. It is a sphere centered on you, and its edge is set by the oldest light that has had time to arrive. Now, most people hear observable universe and think, well, That is just the part we have seen so far, and with patience, we will see more. And that is half true and half a trap. Yes, as time passes, light from slightly further away finishes its journey, and the sphere of what we have seen grows a little. But here is the catch, and it is savage. The expansion is not just continuing, it is speeding up. The stretching of space is accelerating, which means the horizon of what can ever reach us is closing in relative to the galaxies out there, not opening up. The dough is not just rising, it is rising faster and faster. Raisins that were merely drifting away are drifting away quicker every year, and one by one they cross the speed at which their light can ever catch us. Let me separate the two effects cleanly, because they pull in opposite directions and it is easy to muddle them. There is the light already on its way, old light emitted long ago, still crossing the last of its distance, and that keeps trickling in. So in that narrow sense, our view creeps outward a touch each year. And there is the fate of everything sending new light now, which the accelerating stretch is steadily pushing beyond reach. The first is a dribble of arriving history. The second is a tide of departing galaxies, and the tide is winning. Over the long run, far more of the cosmos is falling out of reach than is coming into it. The account is running dry, slowly, inexorably, one crossed horizon at a time. So we have a strange, cruel arithmetic. On one hand, the oldest light is still arriving, and in that sense, our window creeps outward. On the other hand, accelerating expansion is pushing more and more galaxies over the event horizon, out of reach forever. And the second effect wins in the long run. The long-term future is a universe where fewer and fewer galaxies are reachable, where more and more of the cosmos has crossed the horizon and gone dark, until, in an unimaginably distant future, an astronomer would look out and see almost nothing beyond their own local cluster of galaxies. The rest receded past the wall, gone from view. The evidence of the wider universe erased, not destroyed, but placed permanently out of reach. Imagine a mind born into that far future, with sharp instruments and clever theories, staring at a sky nearly empty beyond their neighborhood. They would have no way to know, from observation alone, that a vast, crowded cosmos ever surrounded them. The redshift would be gone, the distant galaxies would be gone, the evidence itself would have crossed the wall. They might conclude the universe was small and static and old, and every observation available to them would agree, and they would be wrong, and nothing they could ever measure would tell them so. Let that land, because it is genuinely dizzying. A careful, honest, brilliant observer in that far future, doing everything right, checking every measurement, would build a picture of a small, lonely, unchanging cosmos, and every single thing they could point their instruments at would confirm it. They would not be sloppy. They would not be foolish. They would simply be walled off from the evidence that would have corrected them, which means, and this is the part that should make you sit up, the completeness of what we can observe is itself a thing that can decay. Truth does not fade, but access to the evidence for it does. And that raises a quiet, uncomfortable question about our own moment. What has already crossed our wall in the deep past that we will never know we are missing? We assume our view is rich. Maybe it is only the leftovers of a once fuller sky. Think about what that means. It means the amount of the universe you can know is not fixed, and it is not growing without limit. It is bounded, and in the deep future, it shrinks. There is a maximum, a largest sphere of the knowable, and everything past it might as well not exist for any purpose you could ever act on. You cannot see it, cannot signal it, cannot reach it, cannot be reached by it. It is causally severed, cut off from your slice of reality as completely as if it were in a separate universe. And notice, we may be the lucky ones. We live in a time when the evidence is still arriving, when the redshift still tells its story, when the wider cosmos still writes itself across our sky. That window is open now. It will not stay open forever. And this is where it stops being about telescopes and starts being about the nature of knowing itself. Because if a region of reality can never send you a single bit of information, can never affect you in any way ever, then no experiment you could ever run could tell you anything about it. It is not just unseen. It is unknowable in the strongest sense. It has fallen outside the reach of evidence. Here is the reductio that finishes it. Suppose you claim to know something certain about a galaxy beyond your horizon. What could that claim even mean? To know something in the honest sense we care about here, you need it to be falsifiable. You need there to be some observation that could prove you wrong. That is the beating heart of scientific literacy, the willingness to name in advance what would show you up. But no observation can ever reach you from beyond the horizon. So there is no possible observation that could confirm or deny anything you say about it. The claim floats free of all evidence. It is not even wrong. It is simply outside the domain where true and false can be decided. You can tell a story about what is out there. You cannot ever check it. And a story you can never check is not knowledge, it is decoration. I want to be careful here, because this is not a license to shrug at hard questions. It is the opposite. It is a very precise fence. Inside the fence, we can ask, measure, be wrong, correct ourselves, and inch toward the truth. That is the arena where the whole magnificent machinery of finding out actually works. The fence does not say give up. It says here, and no further can evidence follow you. And knowing exactly where that fence stands is not a defeat. It is the sharpest kind of knowledge there is, the knowledge of your own limits, drawn not from timidity, but from the plane geometry of light and space. So the wall is not only a wall of distance and a wall of time, it is a wall of knowability. It marks the boundary of the arena in which the question, does the universe do this or that, even has an answer you could ever get at. Beyond the wall, the questions do not stop being questions. They stop being answerable forever. This is a stranger kind of limit than the first two, and gentler in one way, because it is not that a thing is hidden from you behind an obstacle, it is that the very notion of testing it has dissolved. The obstacle is not in front of the truth. The obstacle is around the whole idea of finding out. And here is the part that lifts the hair on my arms. That boundary is not a flaw in our tools. It is not a temporary state of ignorance we will one day cure. It is woven into the structure of space-time, the single fabric of space and time together that everything sits inside. The wall was there before us, will be there after us, and would be there for any mind anywhere in the cosmos. Every observer in every galaxy sits at the center of their own bubble of the knowable, walled off by the same three faces: distance, time, knowability, no exit from any of them, three walls. And now watch them fold into one. Look at what we have built. And notice they are not three separate facts. They are one fact wearing three masks. The wall of expanding distance, where light cannot cross faster than space grows. The wall of the early fog, where no light comes from before the universe turned transparent. The wall of knowability, where whole regions fall permanently out of causal reach. Pull back far enough and you see it. Every one of these is the same principle. Information cannot travel infinitely fast, and the container it travels through is not fixed. That is the whole of it. That single pairing generates all three walls. Take away either half and the walls dissolve. If light were infinitely fast, you would see everything now, everywhere. And there would be no delay to defeat, no fog wall in your past, no galaxies escaping your reach. If space were fixed and unchanging, light would always get through eventually, no matter how far, and the horizon would open without limit. It is the marriage of the two that traps you. Finite messenger, growing container. Watch how tightly they lock together. Light has a finite speed. That alone gives you the delay, the fact that far means long ago. Add expanding space, and the delay becomes a defeat, a race the light can lose. Add accelerating expansion, and the loss becomes permanent and growing, the horizon closing around each observer. And run the whole thing backward instead of forward, and the same finite speed of light gives you the oldest light, the cosmic microwave background, the fog wall at the start. One idea, the finite speed of information in a stretching container. Every wall falls out of it. You do not need three separate laws. You need one situation looked at from three angles, and the three walls are just the three shadows it casts. And I love that this is what Occam's razor rewards, the old rule that you should not pile up assumptions beyond what you need. Here we had what looked like three separate mysteries, three different edges on reality. And instead of inventing three explanations, we found one, and the one explains all three without a single spare part. That is not a trick of presentation. That is the signature of an idea that is probably right. When one simple thing accounts for what seem like many things without straining, you are usually looking at something true. The walls do not each need their own reason. They share one reason and share it perfectly. And here is the convergence that I find almost too neat to be an accident, though of course it is not an accident, it is just what the logic forces. All three walls surround you personally. Not the earth as some special throne. You, as an observer, wherever you stand, move to another galaxy, and you would carry your walls with you, recentered on your new home, the same three faces at the same three distances. This is the Copernican principle, again, taken to its coldest, cleanest conclusion. You are not special, which means the walls are not a local accident, they are universal. Every possible observer is boxed in exactly the same way. The universe is not a place with one edge that some lucky traveler might reach. It is a place where every point is the center of its own inescapable enclosure. 10 billion light years from here, on some world we will never see, a creature we will never meet looks up at its own sky and sits inside its own three walls, identical to yours, in shape, centered on it instead of you. And its walls and your walls overlap only partly, like two circles drawn with different centers, so that each of you can see regions the other never will, and neither of you can ever compare notes. Now, let me connect this to the thing that has haunted anyone who ever looked up and wondered if we are alone. Consider the great silence, the puzzle of why. In a cosmos of countless stars and countless worlds, we have not heard a whisper from anyone else. People reach for the Drake equation, that famous chain of guesses that tries to estimate how many talkative civilizations might be out there, multiplying the birth rate of stars by the fraction, with planets by the fraction of those in the Goldilocks zone, the warm band around a star where water could stay liquid. On down through the fraction that grow life, that grow minds, that build things that broadcast. And people wrestle with the Fermi paradox, the simple gut punch of a question: if the universe should be full of life, then where is everybody? The walls have something to say about that silence, and almost nobody connects it. Even if the universe teems with life, most of it may sit beyond your horizon, not hidden by distance you could someday cross, hidden by the wall. Their signals, if they ever sent any, aimed straight at us, could be swimming upstream against expanding space, losing the race, destined never to arrive. A cosmos could be crowded with voices and still fall silent to every listener in it, because the container carrying the voices is pulling the speakers apart faster than sound can cross. The silence might not mean absence. It might mean the walls are doing exactly what the geometry says they must. Every civilization that ever arises might be sealed inside its own horizon, close enough in principle, severed in practice, each one wondering where everybody is, each one a voice inside a sphere that no other voice can enter. Loneliness not because the room is empty, but because the room keeps growing walls between every pair of guests. And even the search for gentler evidence runs into it. When we hunt for another living world, we look for a biosignature, some fingerprint of life written into the light of a distant planet, an exoplanet circling another star, a trace of the gases that life tends to leave behind in an atmosphere. Or we listen for a technosignature, some deliberate hum that only a builder could make. Both are messages that must cross space to reach us on light at light's finite speed through the same stretching container, which means the same horizon that hides the galaxies hides most of the living worlds too. We can only ever check the ones inside our sphere. The rest, however full of song, are sealed away by the very geometry we have been tracing all evening. The search is real and worth doing, but it searches a walled garden, not the whole estate. And the same logic reframes those tantalizing little visitors that occasionally pass through our own neighborhood, the interstellar objects, chunks of another star system that wander into ours. When one of them shows a strange non-gravitational acceleration, a nudge of speed that gravity alone does not explain, imaginations run wild. And I understand why. We have watched more than one such traveler slip through on paths that plainly came from outside our own system, and at least one that seemed to speed up a touch as it left in a way that set tongues wagging about what it might be. Most likely a whisper of gas venting off a warming surface, a comet's quiet exhale, giving it that little unexplained push. But even the wildest reading of such a visitor is a story that happens well inside our walls, in our own tiny, reachable pocket. The visitor came from a nearby star, cosmically speaking, a neighbor within the sphere we can touch. It drifted in from the outer edge of our own solar neighborhood, past the icy rubble of the Kuiper Belt, a message from across the street, not from across the wall. The vast bulk of the universe, the part beyond the horizon, sends no visitors and no signals and never will. Whatever is out there stays out there. Everything that ever reaches us, every rock, every ray, every whisper, comes from inside the enclosure. The wall lets nothing across. So everything converges. The far galaxies leaving forever. The fog at the beginning we cannot see behind. The regions falling out of knowability. The great silence that may be geometry rather than loneliness. They are all the shadow of one wall, cast in different directions. A wall built before time, out of nothing but the finite speed of light and the restless stretching of space. And you live inside it, at the center of your own copy of it, and so does every mind that ever will exist anywhere. That is the shape of the thing. One principle, three faces, no exit, and a universe that hands each observer a bounded, private, unreachable everything and dares them to make peace with the edge. So, let us bring it home. We started with an impossible-sounding claim that you could travel forever in a straight line and never reach the edge of what you can see, because the edge is fleeing faster than you can chase. And I promised you that if you followed each step from your armchair, you would not find the break. Let us retrace the path and check. We began with the humblest fact of all. Information travels, and traveling takes time. Everything you know about anything beyond your own skin arrived carried on something, and that something moves at a finite speed. Light, the fastest messenger there is, still takes 8 minutes to reach you from the sun, 4 years from the nearest star, centuries from the bright stars of winter, and you never see the present, only the past delivered late. Look far, and you look back. Distance and time, the same currency. That was the foundation, and it is not exotic. It is just the speed of light, taken seriously. Then we added the fact that ambushes everyone. Space is not a fixed stage. It stretches. We know because the light from distant galaxies arrives reddened, its waves pulled longer, redshifted, and the further the galaxy, the more the stretch, exactly the pattern you would get from a container swelling, like rising bread with every point drifting from every other. No center, no special reason. The Copernican principle, staring back at us from the color of starlight. Put those two together and the first wall appears. If space between you and a far galaxy grows faster than light can cross it, then light aimed straight at you never arrives. Never late. Never. That galaxy sits past an event horizon, a one-way boundary in reality. And no ship, not even one at the very edge of light speed, could ever chase it down because the gap grows faster than any traveler can close it. The escape is not difficult. It is impossible in the way reaching yesterday is impossible. Then the same shape pointed backward in time. Rewind far enough and the universe was an opaque fog, so hot and dense that light could not travel in a straight line, forever bouncing off loose particles that had not yet settled into atoms. There is a curtain the moment the fog cleared, and its light still washes over you as the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light there is, a whisper in the static of a dead channel stretched to the very limit by all the expansion since. You cannot see behind it. Not with a better telescope, not with any telescope, because the fog was physically opaque. A wall in time matching the wall in space. And the third face, the hardest, The expansion is accelerating, so galaxies are crossing the horizon and going dark forever. And the reachable universe in the deep future shrinks, which means whole regions of reality become causally severed, unable to send you a single bit of information ever. And a thing that can never touch you, never signal you, never be tested against any observation is not merely unseen. It is unknowable outside the arena where falsifiable, where true and false can even be decided. A claim about it is not wrong. It is just decoration. And then the walls folded into one finite speed of information in a stretching container. That single idea generates all three. Take away either half and they vanish. Keep both and they are inescapable. And every one of them surrounds you personally, recentered on any observer anywhere, because you are not special. The wall is universal. It even whispers an answer to the great silence, the Fermi paradox, the empty result of the Drake equation's hopeful arithmetic. Maybe the cosmos is full of voices, and maybe most of them are simply walled away, their signals losing the upstream race against expanding space. Silence that is geometry, not absence. That is the whole argument, every step laid on the table. And I will confess, I went looking for the crack, the place where a sharper mind than mine could say, ah, but here you have cheated. I did not find it. The speed of light is finite. Space expands. The expansion accelerates. Each of those is something we can point to in the sky and measure. And the walls follow whether we like them or not. Now, let me be honest about what is still genuinely open. Because the whole point of this way of thinking is precision about the edge of what we know. We do not know why the expansion is accelerating. We have a placeholder name for the cause, a shorthand for the thing pushing space apart, but naming it is not explaining it, and anyone who tells you it is fully understood is skipping steps. We do not know its true nature. And if that nature turned out to be different from what we assume, if the push were to fade or strengthen or reverse, the exact placement of the far wall could shift. The wall would still be there in some form. Its precise distance is provisional. That is not weakness. That is exactly the honesty this whole way of thinking demands. A theory is only as good as the observation that could kill it. And this one stays alive so far by surviving every test we can throw at it. But we hold it with an open hand. We do not fully understand the earliest instance, the moments behind the fog before the curtain came down. There are ideas, careful ones, but they live in a place where our best theories strain, where the arithmetic we trust in ordinary conditions starts to buckle, and the honest answer is that the very beginning remains a bounded mystery. We know how far the boundary sits. We do not yet know what lies just on the other side of it. And we may find new couriers, ripples in space-time, faint particles that carry a little news from behind the curtain without ever tearing the curtain down. We should watch for them. We should not overclaim what they will show. And there is a wilder possibility worth holding lightly. All of this assumes the rules we have measured hold everywhere and always. That is the mediocrity assumption, the bet that our patch of cosmos is typical, ordinary, representative of the whole. It is a good bet. It has never failed us. Every time we have assumed we sit in a special spot, we have been wrong. And every time we have assumed we are ordinary, we have been right. But it is a bet, not a proof. If reality is stranger at scales we cannot reach, the map could have features we have not drawn. We keep the possibility on the table unfilled, because that is what honesty requires. And there are loose threads, too, that we have set aside all evening, the unseen mass we call dark matter that bends starlight through gravitational lensing, the way a heavy foreground object warps the light of things behind it and holds galaxies together against their own spin, whose true identity we still cannot name. Loose threads do not unravel the walls, but an honest map shows where the threads still hang. What does not seem open, what the logic nails down hard, is the existence of the walls themselves. You can argue about their exact distance. You cannot, as far as I can tell, argue them away. And that is the strange gift of this whole picture. The uncertainty is bounded. we can say precisely how far our ignorance extends. And that itself is a kind of knowing. Occam's razor, the old rule that you should not multiply your assumptions beyond need, sits comfortably here. The simplest story that fits everything we see is a finite messenger in a growing container. Everything else follows cleanly without a single extra invented thing. So here is where I leave you. Tonight, if the sky is clear, step outside and look up. Really look, and know that the light landing in your eye is old, some of it ancient, and that beyond it sits a boundary you were born inside of and will never cross. And neither will anyone, anywhere, ever, a wall built before time, out of nothing but the patience of light and the restlessness of space. And here's the thing I cannot get over, the thing that turns the whole cold picture warm. You get to know about it. You, a brief arrangement of atoms on a small wet rock, get to sit in your chair and reason your way to the edge of the knowable universe and understand, actually understand, why the edge is there. That the cosmos hands every mind a bounded everything, and that yours has grown just now to hold the shape of it. No ship took you there. Just the logic followed step by step, from an armchair all the way to the wall. The wall does not shrink the wonder. It focuses it. Everything you can ever reach, ever touch, ever affect, ever be affected by, sits inside your horizon. And that is not a prison. That is your whole share of reality, and it is staggeringly, impossibly vast. More stars inside your reachable sphere than there are grains of sand on every beach on Earth. More worlds than you could visit if you had 1,000 lifetimes and a fleet of impossible ships. It is yours to keep learning about for as long as you are curious. The unreachable outside only makes the reachable inside more precious. A thing without an edge is hard to love. A thing with an edge you can hold in your mind. And you are holding it now. If sitting with these ideas gave you even a fraction of the delight they gave me, I would be honored if you stayed around for more of them. Consider subscribing so we can keep doing this together, one impossible question at a time. No rush, no pressure, just the quiet pleasure of following the logic to wherever it leads. Thank you for giving me this stretch of your time. Out of all the walls in the universe, the fact that you spent it here, thinking alongside me, means more than I can say. I will see you under the next question.